On today's episode, we are discussing about journeying up as a young widow. And my guest today, who is Emma, the co-founder of Taraja organization, she's going to tell us her journey as a young widow who lost her husband at the age of 31 years. So if you want to get full details and how, if you are a widow, you're going to be part of that organization, keep it locked. Hi, Wairimu.
Hello, Jane.
How are you?
I'm very well.
Oh, thanks so much for creating time for us. I'm so grateful. And I wish to request you to introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, who is Wairimu, and then give us your journey as a young widow.
Okay, thank you for having me. My name is Emma Wairimu. I'm a mother of two and co-founder of Taraja Trust, a widows organization. Yes.
Yeah, talking about, if we look at you, you're so young, very young, and then you have an organization, and the organization entails about widow. Tell us about your journey. Where did it begin? What actually happened?
Okay, I like to put it, this is a story about Paul, because once your status change, your name is no longer Emma, but people will refer you to, like myself, Paul's widow. I met Paul, I was in first year, so we were doing the same course, and I liked him, someone, I felt like we had the same upbringing, the same family background, and having, similar course, we had a strategy. And when he proposed, I had already put it in my mind, this is the man who will marry me. So it was more than a marriage, it was a partnership, knowing that when I pitch, I don't have to convince him because he has already seen the prospects of any idea I give him. So we got our firstborn in 2013 and our secondborn in 2017. So she was born on 28th of February 2017, and day 2, that's when Paul had an accident on Thursday night. So now after delivery, she was delivered in Tuesday, and the accident happened on Thursday night, so Friday early morning.
How long had you stayed in marriage?
We had been married for less than 4 years. Yes.
So painful.
Yes. So at times, right now I look at, I've been widowed more than I was married, because it's now almost 6 years plus, yes. Yeah. So how I got to know the news, I was calling Paul as a newborn, as a mother who has just given birth. You call to give instructions. I need this, I need this, and this. Bring for me ABCD for the baby, it's your time to be pampered. So when I called the first person who picked the call, he told me in Swahili, mwenye hii simu alianguka na gari jana, ako City Mortuary. So I was in a ward and I screamed, and I screamed for 30 seconds. And then I was like, no one can break the news like this. Yeah, so I disconnected the phone, and then I composed myself. I called him again, and I told him, I'll give you I'll give you someone, he'll call you, and you'll take the phones to him, and he'll pay you. So I gave him my father-in-law's name, and funny enough, he was working within the locality, so he was like, namjua sana. So him telling me that, I knew this is a con man. So I relaxed. Yes. So I relaxed, and I called the church. I told them my husband is missing, but before I called the church, I actually called my house help because my daughter was at home, and asked her, can you see the car parked outside? So she checked, she told me no. So I called the church, I told them Paul is missing. And then I called the officer in charge for traffic in Kikuyu because I wanted to know if there was an accident the previous day. So I called him, he knew me, and I came to know later that he's the one who got to pick Paul after the accident. So he told me he's not around, I'm in Nyeri. And his phone went off. I called my brother-in-law, I told him Paul is missing. Calling him again, his phone was off. So I knew I couldn't.
Something was not right.
Yes, I knew he's missing, and I couldn't burden the parents to look for him. So I knew it's up to me to look for him. So I gave the lady who was next to me my baby, and then I'm not sure if she thought I'm trying to run away and leave the baby with her. So I went, I cleared, I paid, and that was 7 in the morning. By 8, I had already cleared and paid. I called Uber. So I took my, I had a kiondo and a karai, so I put my baby inside the karai. I went outside because Uber, there's so far they can come. So I checked myself out. So my first, I needed to confirm if there was indeed an accident along Wairimu Way. So I went direct to Kikuyu. When I got to Kikuyu, I looked at the wreckages. His car was not there. So as I was leaving, my father-in-law called me, and he was like, where are you? He had sent a team to come and discharge me. When they got to hospital, I wasn't in hospital. So he was like, don't go back home, just come straight to his place. So I went there. When I got there, there were so many people. It's a small community. So they had already pitched tents. So I was like, maybe he was hosting, he's having a bash. It didn't even bother me. When I got there,
It's a surprise.
yes, my mom-in-law was crying, and she wasn't even calling the son's name. She was calling my daughter's name. Like, I have 2 girls, so she was crying, calling my firstborn's name and then my secondborn's name. So I was like, okay, it's not a big deal. So I asked my father-in-law, were the phones brought? So he didn't respond. I have a friend in DCI, so I called him. I told him, like, Paul is missing. The last update, he had updated Facebook of the new status, like he posted a picture of himself and our baby on Facebook. And then after that, like, there was no trace. So I gave him the background, and I called Safaricom. I was on call, and my father-in-law just came and put the phones on the table. He was like, he had the phone. Yes, like, chill. So everything was moving so fast. I then called my sister, and I called my mom and told them, like, we need to find Paul, because I know they're very resourceful.
At that point, nothing had struck your mind that it could be something worse is coming?
No, I like even in our bringing, like, young people don't die, like, unless you intentionally want to look at widows. I didn't think my husband would die at 33, because 33 is very young. So, and we had just had a baby, we had plans, we had even retirement plans. So, like, that was the last thing in my mind. So later during the day, they gathered women, and then they took me in a room and told me Paul has rested. So, like, in my first, like, I couldn't understand, like, we use the word die. So when someone tells you someone, like, said, I was like, okay, maybe he's in hospital. I actually thought maybe he had an accident. He was taken to hospital, and like, I know they were waiting for me to come out, and we go and visit them. And when they broke the news, I was like, I just felt cold. I didn't cry immediately. My first thought was like, oh my gosh, what would Paul expect? Like, I've never, like, I was thinking now, how will he want his funeral to be? Because he was very precise. And I started running around. I remember my mom telling me, like, you've just had a baby, you can't be running around. So like, but in my mind I had to make sure everything is right. So for the first 6 weeks, I don't have much, like I don't recount, because I didn't go back to my place. From my in-laws place, I went and stayed with my sister for some time, like almost a month plus. When I went back home is when, in April, is when like it is struck. Yes, like you go home and the house feels empty. You like it doesn't hit you what is missing. Like you'll be cooking and you're cooking his favorite meal. You'll set the table and count him. So by the time you realize he's not coming back, it takes a while. It took me more than 6 months to know, like, he's really not coming back. I couldn't even lock the door in case, like with the latch, in case he comes and finds me, like,
Asleep.
Yeah, and
just coming.
yes, and there's no one to open for him. So it took me so much time to adjust. But one thing I know, like, I've talked to widows, and I was very active having a 3-year-old baby and nursing one. Like I was back to back. So the only time I had to mourn is at night, because during the day I'm engrossed with stuff. I was on contract, so I was still working. So I had so much on my plate that grieving was the last thing in my mind. Yes.
So how did that journey happen? How did you, at what time did you feel like now it is time to grieve? What are the challenges that came in between? And then, you know, being a young widow, it comes with a lot of challenges. How were you accommodated?
Okay, I tried to, the pain was so much, and I was looking for a way to channel it or better release it. So in our church, we had a widows group, and there was an announcement on the bulletin that in the afternoon, like, all widows were meeting. So I decided to plug in and actually meet other widows, because during the funeral, I met some widows, and what they were telling me, that the first thing, people will hate you. So I'm wondering, why would someone hate me and they don't even know me? So like, they had even told me my in-laws will hate me. And funny thing, after the funeral, my father-in-law had offered for me to stay in one of his apartments. He's like, you can move back home. And I was like, no, I'm like, I felt like maybe he doesn't feel like I have the capacity to stay on my own or raise the kids alone, now that the son had passed on. So I didn't take up the offer. I wanted, like, to affirm the world that I'm still able to do things, because even when I was staying with my sister, they wouldn't let me do anything. They wouldn't even let me drive. So everything was done for me. So I wanted to show them, like, I have, yes, yes, and I have the capacity, like, yes. And the term widowhood had not even sunk in. So when you go to write next of kin is when you realize, like, oh my gosh, like,
I'm a widow.
Yes, like, and you have to check widowed. So I tried to plug into church, and church, the widows were way much older, so we couldn't resonate. I talked to my pastor, and he was like, why don't you do something for, young widows under 35? And during that week, a friend of mine called me. I didn't even know she was widowed. So she had been widowed 6 months prior. And she told me she wanted us to have a support group of ladies and parents in kindergarten who had lost their babies. The first thing is that I was happy there are other young widows. Like, I was like, I thought I'm alone. So I was like, I was happy I'll have a platform to release and, you know, get to know. And yes. And I got so much more, because when we met with the ladies, we used to share our stories. We got accountability partners, like instead of venting to your boss or not being productive, I can call my friend and vent and tell her my frustration. It was a way of reaffirming myself that I'm not actually going mad, because at times you have so much pain, you push people away, you react to things that, you know, don't need a reaction. So we started the support group, and through church we'd reach out to widows. If you're bereaved, we come visit you and listen to you, just be there, even if you're not offering any support. We felt like our presence, you can look at someone, you can hear their story and be encouraged. So that's how we started as a support group. And
so I'll cut to Emma. At first, when you approached the church and then you gave them the idea, and then at the same time you say that the people that you met were older people, how was the reaction? You know, aside from connecting with that group, you know, those old mama, definitely there's something that will tell you that will not sync with you well.
I remember that day, like they were old women, let me say that, older widows, so they don't have young children to raise. So the meeting went up to 4, and I still had my small baby. She was, I think, 6 weeks then. So I stood, I was going out, and actually the chair lady, she told me, "Ata sisi tumelea." I don't know if it's the tone of her voice. That's like, I had so much anger because I hadn't really cried for so I unleashed on her. And after that, I told on her to the pastor, and he was like, if you're not fitting, why don't you start something and, you know, accommodate these young widows, because you definitely you can fit. Yes, so in the process of trying to form something, that's when I met her. She's now the CEO of Taraja Widows organization. That's how she called us, and we had a meeting. So we'd meet for tea and just share our story, cry a lot. I think the first few months we used to just cry, because someone will give you their story. I met now my best friend. She lost her husband. The daughter was 6 weeks. And by the time I was meeting her, she had been 6 years in widowhood. So I was like, if she made it, I'll also make it. Yes. One of the co-founders also, she gave birth the day she buried her husband. So at times, like, I feel my situation is not as dear. And another one still, like when the husband passed on, she was 5 months pregnant. So she was telling us she wasn't even sure if she'll carry the pregnancy to term, because the pain was so much. She was expected to do so much. So it's through the stories that we are encouraged. It's through the stories that we even laugh at. We call it the stupid decisions we've made, because at times someone will look at me, they are not even thinking about me, and I'll be like, "Uyo anipendi," like they don't like me, because one thing widowhood does, it steals your identity. For me, my work was really affected, because I wasn't productive. I was always angry or looking for a way to be punished. Like if my boss shouts at me, I feel like I deserve it. Like I was in so much pain, and I felt like only fire can, you know, like burn fire. So I wanted more pain. Yes, more pain, so that I can like fill the void and show that I need to, you know, like find a way through it. Yes.
Emma, I would like to understand, other than the few challenges that you mentioned, what are the common challenges that having came together as a widowed group, sharing your pain? What are some other notable challenges that you picked from other members?
Okay, I think the first thing that stands out is your finances are affected because your lifestyle depended on two incomes. Right now you have one income, so you have to adjust and adjust fast, because if you can support yourself for 6 months, it shows like there'll be issues ahead. You have kids to raise. Like for me, I was renting, so I have to pay the rent, I have to pay school fees. Like everything was on me. Yes, so you'll find that if you, to maintain the lifestyle, either you have to work twice as hard or you'll get into debt. So you'll find that people say widows, like they borrow money with no intention of returning. And yeah, that's why I say like finances is one of the biggest challenges that we have. So when one is bereaved, we tell them like you gauge, you do an audit of your life. Do you need to cut down on some expenses? Do you need to change children from the school they are in? So that's the number one thing that we need to look at. And then stigmatization. No one wants to be associated with a widow. Okay. So you'll find that we are young, we have friends, but you automatically you are disinvited from parties. Not that you want to go for parties, like you like of course you don't have the capacity and energy to go, but being sidelined, you like even if you're comforting yourself, hata sikuwa nataka kwenda, you want someone to ask you, can you join us for a family function? And people will tell you, you don't have a partner, so you won't fit. So it comes from a good place, but they don't know how to put it, because if it's a couple's event, I won't invite you, and the time someone will think she has small kids to raise, a party or a road trip is the last thing on her mind. But we find that you'd have asked, I say no. You'd rather have asked, I say no. So there's a lot of stigmatization. And I've met widows, especially in the western part of Kenya, disinheritance. So I know a couple of widows. Right now we are at a capacity of 10,000.
Wow.
Yes, and someone gives you their story the day of the funeral, like your in-laws have already taken everything, like even including your house. They give you your clothes, they say this is our son's property. It's really heartbreaking to see, like
widow being disinherited and still being in pain.
Yes, and at times you'll find that you had married this man for time, like 25 years, 30 years. I'm like, I don't know, we should have laws to protect the widows.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. So
talking about your organization, what was the main reason of you coming together and then uniting as widows?
We started more of a support group where we can share our stories, where we can compare notes, because I'll tell you how I dealt with a certain situation. So if it works for me, I'll adapt that. If it doesn't, we encourage someone, I'll share my story, I'll tell you what I did in a certain situation. So you choose what you'll pick that works for you. We also, the church has introduced grief counseling. So we have family members like educated and taken through like the journey of widowhood, grieving, what to expect, because you'll find that if I'm grieving, I've lost my husband, and my mom-in-law, she's grieving, she has lost the son. So grief counseling sets a balance where you can respect each other and respect each other's ways of mourning, so that there is less conflict. And we find that any widow who has gone through grief counseling, they become better people, and even if there is conflict, they'll be the one to yes, and bring a solution. We also have lawyers in our team. They help with matters succession. If you're thrown out, how will they help you? Like if it's a rented place, like mostly no one will throw you out, but what happens if it's your home? So they help with administration and succession, and even being the mediators in between the in-laws and now the bereaved widow. Yes.
When you lose a husband, what comes out as, what do you fear most?
Okay, myself, I had this fear that I'd die and leave my children. So I was like looking among my sisters who can raise my kids, like I have that constant fear, like have I invested enough for, like, if I die today, who will take care of my children? Will they be taken to an orphanage? Like that constant fear of not living and having your kids orphaned is, I think, the most traumatic, and it's constant what happens, because you realize it's one parent now, so the probability if you go, it's 50-50. If you go, definitely your kids are orphans. Yes.
So I'm sure those one will be watching you and their widows, they will really love to join your group and be part and parcel of the organization. So what are some of the protocols that are followed before one becomes a member?
Okay, we are open to all widows, whether you are legally married or not. So we do a vetting, so we'll get a death certificate, and then if you don't have a death certificate, we will talk to your local chief, and then we get to know you better. But we are always open to accommodate anyone. Like you'll find that individually, communal, you'll find we have areas we go and we find like a man had like 3 or 4 wives. So they're all widows, so we'll accommodate them all.
If I want to find Taraja, nitaanzia wapi? Do I look for Emma, or where do I start from?
Okay, for Taraja, we are on all social platforms. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, now X, and also we have a website, so you can join. It's Taraja. Taraja means hope in Swahili. So tarajawidows.co.ke. So you'll find us, you'll contact us. We always have someone who will respond to you and work with you. So our main thing is to support you through the journey, because widowhood doesn't end. Like at times someone will call me and like their triggers, you find like a car that looks like your husband and it's been 10 years, even the number plates, maybe the last digits. So they are always everyday triggers, and you need a backing system, someone you can call and tell them, today I'm not well. If it's you can delegate, pick my kids from school, do this and this, I need time alone. So you don't have to walk alone, because we are here to support you, we're here to work with you. Yes.
So one last word to young widows, what can you tell them?
Life doesn't stop. The crying will go on, but once you stop, it means your bills won't be paid. So like gather all your strength for the sake of your kids and push. Like there's no stopping. Like you have to push every day you push, and make sure like your kids will look up to you and say, my mom did not give up. Yes.
Thanks so much, Emma. I believe your story will be so touching, will touch so many souls. Because, if you talk of widowhood, that is a situation that affects both families. and need to be dealt with sensitivity. So for you sharing, I believe both ends will understand what it feels to be in that situation. So I'm so much grateful for your time.
And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my story. I hope it encourages someone.
It definitely will.
Yes.
To my family, I believe this is a story that it needs love, it needs care. And this definitely goes to the family members, friends, and everyone who is around a widow. Just spread love, because you never know what happens tomorrow. Till next time, I'm your host, Jal Msumba.